Namaste. Today, we're going to do a little bit of focusing on the outer rotation of the thighs, which actually is I call it thigh socket. Some people maybe call it the hip joint, but it's where the crease where the leg meets your pelvic girdle. And we're just going to have a little play with that. We'll see what muscles are connected, what helps us open that rotation and not causing stress in the knees. So, of course, if you have challenges in your knees, do less or just, um, notice what will support your knees. You can always have support under your knees later if you need it. You can have rolled towels, rolled blankets, whatever. But we will start with just a little bit awareness around that. Our two joints, the thigh socket, and then, of course, into the shoulder socket, is where we have that three-dimensional rotation. Like your elbow and your knee are just really hinge joints. So they just bend and open. And sometimes we mistakenly think that we can move some of those areas more, but it only actually causes more misalignment. So anytime we do rotation, we want it, through that shoulder joint or through that thigh socket, or I guess some people call it a hip joint. I don't usually call it that, but it just depends on your background, what kind of training you've had, what you call it. So let's begin with a little bit of awareness around that joint. So we're just going to lay on our back to start with, and you can just put your hands in that crease, and then you just lift one leg and put it down, and lift the other leg and put it down, because the actual joint is closer into the midline than you think. It's not out here, it's actually in here. So just feeling what that feels like. And then with the feet on the ground, just slowly drop the right leg down and just notice what sensations you have in that thigh opening. Now, usually just dropping it down brings more weight and it might pull the other hip off the floor. That's okay for now. We'll do it more consciously in a moment, or should I say, more muscularly in a moment. And then you just bring that leg out and then drop the knee to the other side. And of course, it brings this other hip up a little bit. And then bring it up. And now just slowly open it to the side and see if you can start to engage that outer knee to the outer hip there. And that's going to be different. It might be a different range of movement. And then just bring it up. And then engage the left one as you open out. And then bring it up. And you might have interesting sensations, that feels strange. Just become aware of it. And if, of course, you don't want to have joint or physical pain. There's a difference between discomfort and some kind of joint physical pain that's where you shouldn't go into movement. But actually, a lot of pain is relieved by movement. So we sort of have to learn the difference in our own body. So now bring your right leg up and hold on right at the knee, and then just do a little bit of circling. Now this is kind of going outer, opening the outer thigh, and then it's crossing over, so you open in the other direction. So we'll go one way. So I'm bringing it out first and then crossing over. and then do the opposite where you cross it over first. So that's more inner rotation, and then coming to that outer rotation. So you might just notice, and if you need to use both hands in this movement. You might begin to notice where it's not as smooth in this joint, or where you might have a little discomfort, or maybe you just need a smaller range. So again, you can just do this smaller range of movement, or you can start with a smaller range and then bringing it into a fuller range. And just notice that. And the benefit of having the hand hold on like this is you're also starting to get a little bit of shoulder rotation as well. And then bring that foot down and take the opposite hand and the opposite leg. And I didn't say this on the other side, but when we start, you really press that right foot in that helps stabilize that right side as you're rotating the left. And if you want to start in a small circle, a more contained circle, you can do that to start with, because that might actually help ease you into a larger circle if your body is able to do that. And again, you can use both hands to do this. It'll kind of raise the opposite shoulder up a little bit more, but that's sort of not the point. The point is to really do the rotation in the joint. And then you can totally go the opposite way. And if you ever have a partner or you're doing practice together with somebody else, one of the nicest things is to have somebody just hold your leg and lift it up for you, and just feeling what it feels like to just let go of that weight and have somebody release the pelvis and the legs that way. So for the next one, we're just going to do our little abdominal work, but you'll feel how you fold. And if it's useful for you, you can bring the hands here where you fold and straighten the legs out. You can also bring the hands down next to you, if that works better. So you can do a few of each, right? You can put your hands and feel what that feels like down there. Or you can also interlock the hands under your head. And then we're going to try one leg up and the other leg opening to outer rotation. So the next time you bend the knees in, you're going to open the right out to the side and the left one up. And then you bend the legs together, extend up through the heels, then bend the knees in, opening the other leg out and the other leg up, and then bend the knees in together, open up, bend the legs down, open the right leg out to the side, left leg up, bend the knees in, opposite leg, bring them in together, up. I might have skipped an up. If I skipped an up, apologies. And we'll just do one more. Bend the knees in, extend it out and up. Bend the knees together, extend together, up. And bend the knees in, extend the leg out to the side and one up. And then bend the knees in and extend up. And since our legs are already up, you can take a slow, and again, you can either have the hands here next to you, underneath your head or overhead, and just extending those legs all the way down to the floor. And really stretch through the fingertips and really press through the heels. Find that length in the body. And then slowly flex over to one side. So you're just going to roll to the side as you're flexing in towards the center. And then come up onto all fours. Always have to straighten out my mat. And then we're going to do some cat and dog tilts with the pelvis, but then we're going to add that leg variation. So we'll do a couple of rounds of rounding the spine into cat tilt. And then inhale, rounding into dog. And rounding into cat. Rounding it into dog tilt in the spine. Inhale, rounding it to cat tilt. Inhale into dog. And then come into neutral and take your right foot in front of your left thigh. Now, depending on how much outer rotation you have there, your knee may be quite far up, or it might be open. Most likely you don't have a 180-degree turnout unless you're a ballerina or a gymnast, but go to where it feels right for you. And you've got your thigh and ankle supporting each other, and then rounding into cat, and dog tilt, rounding into cat, dog, rounding into cat, dog, and then come into neutral and take that left leg and start to slide it back as much as you can. You don't have to go all the way down to the floor, just try to keep your hips level. And you might feel an outer hip stretch here, but it will support that inner thigh rotation, or that outer thigh rotation, sorry. And just make sure you've got a lift in the abdominals so that you're not really going into that lower back, like you're not putting stress there. And then slowly bend that knee down and take the right knee back so you're into all fours. And we'll just do a couple of rounds of rounding in the cat. Inhale to dog. Rounding in the cat. Inhale to dog. Cat. Inhale to dog. And then again, take that left ankle in front of that right thigh here. And again, your knee is going to go where it works for in your body. And then again, rounding into cat. And you might have to adjust your arms, maybe bring them closer in. Again, it depends on your body. So, and cat, dog tilt, cat tilt, dog tilt, and then start to extend the back leg long. Your hands may come more forward. And this, I just need to go up a little further. Give you a little bit of outer thigh stretch perhaps. Again, depending on your body. legs down. And again, just rounding into cat. Inhale to dog. Rounding into cat. Inhale to dog. And one more, rounding into cat. Inhale to dog. And then just walk your hands out a little bit further, or you could walk the knees back a little further to go into a downward dog. So we'll tuck the toes under, lift those sit bones, and come into a downward dog. And then bring the knees down. And big toes together, knees wide, coming back into Adho Mukha Virasana. And then we're going to do a couple of variations here with the downward dog. And just see how you go with this. So we're going to come up, tuck the toes into downward dog. Then we're going to take the right ankle on the lower part of the thigh. And if you can stay here for a few breaths, or you can come into plank and see how you go. And then come back to downward dog. And then you can try plank again, or you can stay where you are. Come to downward dog. And then bring that foot down. And bring the left one up. And again, if you want to come to plank, you can. Downward dog, or you can just stay in downward dog here. Find your balance. If you'd like to come into plank again, you can. Downward dog, bringing both feet together, and then come into Adho Mukha Virasana, forward facing hero pose. A couple of breaths here. Now we're going to do a variation. You can do what we just did. You can just stay in downward dog with it for a few breaths. You can always take a, break into Adho Mukha Virasana. But we're going to try to bring the foot closer up the thighs, into the thigh socket if you can. So we're first going to go into downward dog. Then when you bring the leg up, you might need to use the other hand to bring the foot higher. If it works. If it doesn't work, you have knee problems, then maybe you just bring it a little bit higher up the thigh just for a variation. And then if you're up to it, you can come into plank, come back up, come into plank, come back to downward dog, release that leg. And then if you can do the other leg, bring the foot higher, come into plank, downward dog, come into plank, downward dog, both feet together, big toes together, knees wide. So that's a little bit more of a challenge, and if it was you didn't, you could just stay in downward dog like that just to find that balance in the hips and see if you get a little more outer rotation in the thigh socket. Or you can go into the challenge of it. Because there's many poses based on half lotus position, which is when you bring that foot into that thigh socket. So I can't even tell you how many poses there are, but there are so many. But again, you may never get to that variation. It may never work for your body. So now go ahead and do one last little downward dog, walking the hands and the feet towards each other. And you can have the knees bent and just do a little bit of shaking with the upper body. Yes and no with the head. And you can slowly roll up to standing. See how we are. Come into Tadasana. And we'll start with Utkatasana, and we'll do some variations with that again. So inhale, arms overhead, and exhale into Utkatasana, powerful pose. See if you can feel that flexion here and really lifting the abdominals so that you don't overarch your lower spine. Come up. Exhale down. Do that again. Inhale the arms up. Come into the Utkatasana. Inhale up. Exhale down. So now we're going to cross the right ankle down here and then come into Utkatasana. Again, you can have your hands here. Go into it by coming here and then lifting that leg up. So whichever way you get into it. And then see if you can straighten up with the leg there. Then release the foot down. And then whichever way you found easier to go into it, hands on hips, arms overhead, coming into it, lifting the foot. Inhale, standing straight with the leg there like a tree variation. And then exhale the arms down. And then we're going to come into it this way if you can. And you might just need to hold that foot to come into it. Now, if you need the leg lower, you can just have it here mid-thigh or low, closer to the knee. If you can bring it up into that thigh socket, you can go into the pose this way. And then inhale up, see if you can straighten those arms and feel that opening in the leg. You might have to hold the foot here and then bring that foot down. And again, you have to do what works for your outer rotation. You may need to leave the foot quite low, or maybe you can bring it up in there and then bend into Utkatasana. See if you can slowly straighten it. Release the arms and the legs. And then after doing that, we will just come into tree and just feel how everything feels now that we've done a little outer hip rotation. So you've got the foot pointing down. You won't have the 180 degree turnout likely. But see if somehow doing that work is giving you a little more ease in this pose. Maybe not, just the thought. You want to bring the arms up, you can. Or you can leave them in prayer position. Release the arm and the legs down. And then standing on the opposite foot, bring your other foot up. And then just notice what's going on in that inner thigh rotation, or perhaps in your hips or in your legs, or your balance even. Notice your stability. And you can extend the arms up. And release the arms down and the legs down. And then we'll do a couple of more standing poses just to feel into if there's rotation in the legs or not, if there's outer or inner rotation. So we'll bring the hands up if you want to jump, or you can just step with the feet wide, and I'll do mirror image. So I'm gonna take the right foot heel to toe. So here everything's pretty much lined up, and then take the back foot toe to heel. So this is when this thigh actually is going to kind of do a bit of an inner rotation. So this is about stabilizing the legs here. So we aren't so much working that outer rotation in this pose. I don't know if you can feel the difference, that this leg is kind of doing this inner rotation and this leg is straight and even on both sides. And then you can just reach the arms down. If you want to put it on the thigh or the shin, you can, and the top arm up. And again, you might feel more stable in this pose after doing a little bit of outer thigh rotation. You might not. And then inhale, coming up. Feet parallel, arms down. And actually, you might feel more stable because we are going now more into a more balanced rotation and an inner rotation in the other thigh. So we're not doing outer rotation. So it might feel like, oh, I'm relieved. I'm in a different space now. So again, take that left foot toe to heel. Take that right foot toe to heel. That was heel to toe. So again, that back thigh is actually doing this inner rotation, really pressing into that back heel. And the front leg is more neutral. There is, you know, there might be a little bit of stretch in that inner thigh, but it's more into a neutral position. And then inhale, arms up, reach, and find that thigh or that shin. And I don't know about you, but for some reason this feels really, I feel more connected in my legs here today. It may not be true for you right now, but it feels like for me that work with the inner thighs has helped me feel that. And then slowly bring the feet in and jump or step into Tadasana, and a couple of breaths there. And then we'll go into Parsvakonasana. So again, you can, if you want to jump, you bring the hands up, or you can step wide, jump wide. It's the same with the feet. Back foot is toe to heel. Front foot is heel to toe. And this time, you're going to really bend deeply into that front leg. And again, there's that inner rotation in the back leg. And you can put the arm on the thigh. See if you can really find that groundedness between the legs. And then the top arm can stay straight up, or it can stay up and over. And slowly coming up, bring the feet parallel. And then taking the left foot, right foot toe to heel, left foot heel to toe, bending deeply in that front leg, feeling that inner rotation in that thigh, pressing into that back heel. And then arm can be down or it can be up and over. Slowly come up. Bring the feet parallel. And then either jump or step back into Tadasana. Just have a couple of breaths there, just letting whatever the pose gave your body then reintegrate back into the midline. We're just going to sit for a few breaths in Tadasana, Dandasana, sorry, hands next to you. And here, everything is in where that fold is. And then what happens when we bend the leg and bring it in that outer rotation? So we'll start it here in the lower thigh like we did earlier. You can bring your hands next to you. If that's too much, you can always put something to support the knee and the leg. But if we start here like we're doing a tree but with the foot a little bit lower, we'll hold that for a few breaths. Then see if you can bring the foot a little bit higher, like in tree pose. Press it into the thigh. And then see if you can bring the knee back a little bit more and roll the foot down. If you've got enough opening, you may not. And see if you can sit here where this hip is slightly behind. But you're trying to bring the torso to the center. And then for the final one, if you're up to it, well, actually, there's many variations. So you can start with the, we'll just do it this way. I'm changing my mind all the time. So just flex the ankle down to the thigh and see how you go here. And again, if you need more support under your leg, you can. And then you can just bring it up a little further. And if you're able to bring it all the way in, you can bring it all the way in. There's a whole series of forward bends with different leg positions, but we're just going to sit up with these today, just to feel what that feels like. So then release that, bring the legs down, and maybe just have a little shake out with the legs. It's always good to shake out the hips and the legs. And then we'll start with the second side. So bring that foot just above the knee if you can. Again, if you need support, use that. We'll just sit here for a few breaths to feel what that feels like. I like putting my hands kind of behind me to keep that up and down spine length. That's where you might need height if you find yourself leaning back, because you want to try to pitch a little bit forward. Then the second position is bringing it higher like you were standing tree pose. So the foot's there on the thigh. And then the third variation is rolling that foot down so that the shin is starting to come down on the floor, and the knee starts to come behind the hip a little bit, but you're still bringing the torso around the front. And this is actually the position for Janashirasana, head to knee pose. And then for the second positioning, take the ankle down towards the knee. Few breaths. And bring it up. Few more. Further up the thigh. This is where it's furthest you may want to go, but you also may want to keep it down lower if you're having any trouble in that knee. And then if you want to go all the way up into the thigh socket, you can come here, and the hands next to you. And then of course you can lean a little bit forward, but we're not going to go fully forward today. Just wanted you to experience what that positioning is like. And then bring that leg out, and you can wiggle through the legs, and then see if you can slide, bring the feet a little bit forward. Then you can start to slide them closer in. And this is really outer thigh rotation with both thighs together in Baddha Konasana. And a couple of breaths here. And then to come out, see if you can raise the knees up. And just like we did in the beginning, you can take, well actually, just like we did in the beginning, come down on your back with your knees up, and first just rotate the right one, feeling into that. Rotate the left one, feeling into that. And actually you can do both, where you bring the knees towards each other, and then you can bring them out and around. And then put the feet on the floor, extend the right leg long, left foot into that thigh. We'll just do a little twist. So a little inner thigh rotation here. And then slowly come up, bend both legs, slide the left leg out. Right foot comes into the thigh, and then left hand on the thigh. and then slowly release. And if you have a chair, you can put your legs on the chair. If you want to put your feet up the wall, you can. Or you can just come into regular Shavasana. Or if you need to have the knees bent, you can also just cross your arms over and go into constructive rest. So whatever position you need today, bring your body into whichever kind of Shavasana you need. And then whatever position you're in, just allow yourself to settle into that pose. Just take a few minutes to soften your breath. And just feel into those thigh sockets where your legs meet your pelvis. Is it feeling like perhaps there's a little bit more energy or flow or fluidity into that sensation in that joint? Also imagine that your legs are like waterfalls that just drop down into the pelvis, into that thigh socket. See if you can feel the back side of your body, so starting with the pelvis and sacrum, really widening, softening into gravity. Back waist, softening and widening into gravity. Back in the rib cage, softening and widening into gravity. Space between your shoulder blades, softening and widening into gravity. You can imagine your arms are also like a waterfall, flowing back into those shoulder sockets, into those joints. Throat soften, back of the neck softens and lengthens. Base of the head is softening. Forehead widens and softens. Your temples are softening. Space between the eyebrows widens and softens. Your eyeballs rest into the eye socket. Your cheeks are softening. Your jaw softens. Your lips, teeth, tongue are all soft. And your chin is softened. And then slowly begin to deepen your breath, finding a little bit of movement into your fingers and toes, your hands, your feet. And then you can do a big stretch and roll to your side, easing yourself up to sitting. Thank you for coming, and namaste.